You would think that there was not a notch that you could go further than, ramming a whale with a speedboat, but if you thought that, you probably have not read Garth Ennis's The Boys. But The Boys presents Diabolical? Oh yeah, that's got your back. The superhero market is crowded these days, which creates the space for the adaptation of Garth Ennis's satire that suggests people with that kind of power would essentially be amoral deviants. Amazon has expanded its VOT shared universe adaptation of Ennis's comics with an anthology of boys-related stories too big or too small for the main series. But there's plenty in there to draw it all together. I get it. Draw because this is animated, yeah? Okay. You get it. I will get on with it. Most of the entries in the anthology revolve around characters that are part of Ennis's Boys characters that do not feature in the main series, which itself revolves around the Seven, a parody of Justice League and the Avengers as an all-star superhero team. That, along with the wildly different styles, means that each of these stories are designed to stand alone with little connection to the main storyline. That is, with the exception of the last entry, 1 + 1 = 2, which shows the early days of the Seven's leader, Homelander. The short shows Homelander's first encounter both with how hard it is to save the day even with superpowers and how corrupt the superhero system is. It includes nods to things like how hard it would be to breathe if someone wrapped a metal railing around you and what really happens when you heat up a gun. Homelander also learns exactly how Black Noir is meant to monitor Homelander when he provides the cover for Homelander's failure to save the day. Showrunner Eric Kripke has stated that this particular episode is canon. While we already know that part of Black Noir's origins are different in the show, it also hints at the big reveal of the character from the comics. And now would be a good time to go ahead and skip that 15 seconds button if you want to avoid this. All right. Gave you a few seconds here to find that button. Are we good? Okay.
Where is the remote?
In the comics, Black Noir is a clone of Homelander and actually responsible for most of the gnarliest things attributed to Homelander. How much of that makes it into the series is to be seen, but now we have a in-main universe look at how that relationship started. Rick and Morty creator Justin Roiland's episode is also meant to reference something that will happen in season 3. Generally speaking, it's not that hard to tell who someone in The Boys is parodying, as subtlety is not really part of the aesthetic. Homelander is Superman, Black Noir is Batman, Queen May, Wonder Woman, Soldier Boy, Captain America, Jack from Jupiter is Martian Manhunter. It was never meant to leave you guessing. Such is the case with Aisha Tyler's Nubian vs. Nubian. There are a number of nods in various directions, like the title's reference to the movie Kramer vs. Kramer that covered a couple's complicated divorce. Nubian vs. Nubian itself examines the difficult banalities of a superhero marriage while also parodying a super couple from Marvel. King T'Challa, aka Black Panther, and Aurora Monroe, aka X-Men Storm, the two superheroes who moonlight as African royalty, eventually got paired up in Marvel Comics. The pair got together while the rest of the superhero world was breaking up over the Superhero Registration Act that caused the Marvel Civil War. Nubian vs. Nubian sees them breaking up over the regular mundane things of everyday people, like shopping for groceries. One of the most classic animated short premises in existence is the precocious baby constantly crawling its way back into peril to the ever-growing concern of their mismatched caretaker. The formula goes back at least as far back as the 1933 cartoon Buddy's Day Out, where the titular Buddy has to look after his sweetheart's baby brother as he crawls his way into increasing peril. Variations of that theme would continue for decades, with cartoons like Feed the Kitty and a Tom and Jerry cartoon. The dynamic is the basis for Roger Rabbit's cartoons in the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Animaniacs, Buttons and Mindy also played on this theme, as well as an episode from the Cuphead adaptation. The Boys puts the extra layer of danger by giving the baby superpowers, in this case, laser eyes. I think that we can all agree by now that in the realm of superpowers, shooting beams from your eyes seems like a lethal one. This could be compared to a gentler satire of superheroes. The Incredibles 2 has a portion where Bob Parr is tasked with looking after a baby who has emerging superpowers. By the end of the episode, the doctor, who has decided to save the baby from termination because she cannot control her powers, starts using that baby as an adorable laser. This echoes Season 5's episode where the boys find the Vought facility where they create superheroes and Butcher uses a laser shooting baby as his way out. He even name drops the animated series title while doing it, but he does say Diabolical a lot. There's another little baby nod in the episode, maybe. Among the various little babies developing powers like poison gas, there's a fin and a gill-headed super baby. Well, sure, there are a lot of babies and weird shapes with superpowers, so what makes this little gill baby so special? Throughout the series, we've learned that the sea-based soup, the Deep, is, to use a euphemism, kinda freaky. Sea-based superheroes like Aquaman get a lot of grief, especially when contemplating their romantic endeavors. Just ask Aquaman in the Peacekeeper finale. So, is it possible the little fish kid is the product of a, let's say, unconventional pairing? Or just a weird-looking baby? Maybe we'll find out in Season 3. Amazon's The Boys series focuses specifically on the exploits of the Seven. The comic book world of The Boys covers the wide world of comic books, including an X-Men parody called G-Men that itself is headed to Amazon as a spin-off series. Showrunner Eric Kripke has been eager to find ways to explore the wider world of The Boys. That includes actually making the movie within a movie that's being filmed over the course of the series, and his desire to do a Seven-based cartoon in the style of the 70s hit cartoons Superfriends, the show that instilled phrases like "meanwhile at the halls of justice" and "wonder twin powers activate into a generation." Toying around with that idea when it came time for something to come between seasons 2 and 3, the idea evolved into giving different creators a chance to do their own interpretation of the wider world of The Boys. Meanwhile, in Entry 6, there was one other episode from the 1 + 1 = 2 that had characters seen in the series, but they looked a bit different than the show. But they did look a lot like the comic book characters that inspired the show. That episode's reverence to the source material is not a coincidence. It's also the one that Boys creator Garth Ennis wrote. Accordingly, the animation was based on the original artist Darick Robertson's style, just amplified for animation. This means that Butcher is beardless and wee Huey bears more than a passing resemblance to Simon Pegg. Queen May also gets her ever-present martini. The episode also features some comic book covers itself, with nods to comic book storylines that were adopted for the series, but there's also an original comic book cover shown briefly in the episode. And to draw that cover, they turned to none other than original artist Darick Robertson. A range of creators were approached, including Aisha Tyler, Lonely Island's Andy Samberg, who oddly delivered the most somber and contemplative episode, and Rick and Morty co-creator Justin Roiland. Unlike a regular series, the entire idea was to have all the episodes be completely unique in their take on the world from story to animation style. To that end, they were only given one parameter. The only thing magic in the world of The Boys is Compound V, which causes superpowers, and Vought itself is the soulless corporate entity at the gooey center of the world, and then everything else after that was fair game. For this one, I have to take the word of the person that found it because I do not play this game, but Reddit poster Zeruso does, and they spotted something a little familiar in the episode Nubian vs. Nubian.
It's funny you should say that, because I was looking through some old photos and it looks very, similar.
During the big showdown with Groundhog as part of an elaborate parent trap of the super duo's kid, there's a quartet of shocked onlookers who Zeruso notes bears more than a passing resemblance to some cast members from Final Fantasy VII, especially Jesse and Barrett, who form the Cell Avalanche in the game with Biggs and Wedge. It should be no surprise that Ennis's episode contains many nods to the series. The bench where Butler and Huey met, and where Huey and Starlight met. In the comic book store that may be from the series, there's the X-Men parody G-Men. When Butler's plan to get at the soup Great White goes very, butlery, we'll say, the attending Seven have to come up with something that covers for the fact that soups aren't just the worst for pointing to the sun and claiming that Galaxius is back. A clear parody of Marvel's hungriest hippie, the planet-devouring Galactus. The episode also features the Martian Manhunter parody Jack from Jupiter, who only appears in the adult film Seven parody that appears in the series. Justin Roiland's episode covered the life of the kids that get less than stellar superpowers, since the powers that people get from Compound V is random. Things like having a speaker for a head that only plays a Hootie and the Blowfish song, and there's another character who we can't describe without changing the rating of our video. These misfits are gathered at a special school reminiscent of Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, but more specifically, New Mutants, which tended to focus on the drawbacks of powers. There's maybe even a better fit, if lesser known parallel. Marvel's short-lived DP7. DP7 was part of Marvel's attempt to create an entirely new superhero reality, completely separate from the regular Marvel stories called the New Universe. DP7, or Displaced Paranormals, focused on a group whose powers were more drawback than advantage. Season 3 needs 100% more Terror the Bulldog. He only showed up in a cameo so far before being part of the title card for the anthology series, but really everything goes better with dogs or cats. The internet has proved this. Come on, be honest. At least one of your recommended YouTube videos has a cat or a dog in it, right?